The year is roughly 3100 BC, and two groups of people who absolutely hate each other. On one side, the people of Lower Egypt. They lived near the coast, near the mouth of the Great Nile River. They wore a red crown. They were traders, they were proud, and they believed they were the true rulers of this land. On the other side, the people of Upper Egypt. They lived further south, deep into the desert. They wore a white crown. They were warriors, tough, fierce, and they believed they were the ones born to rule. For generations, these two groups fought, back and forth, year after year. Neither side is winning, neither side is stopping. Until one man decided enough was enough. His name was Narmer. And history doesn't give us a lot about him. We don't know exactly what he looked like. We don't know what his voice sounded like. But what we do know is what he did. Narmer was the king of Upper Egypt, the south. And one day, he looked at his rival in the north and made a decision. Not to negotiate, not to send a message. He picked up his weapon and he marched. His army moved through the desert, past the sand dunes, past the palm trees, straight toward the people of Lower Egypt. The rival chief gathered his men. He wasn't going to give up without a fight. This was his land, his crown, his people. The battle was brutal. We actually have proof of this moment, one of the oldest historical objects ever found, a flat stone carving called the Narmer palette. And on it, carved thousands of years ago, is Narmer himself, holding his enemy by the hair, raising his weapon. One strike, and it was over. But here's what makes Narmer different from every other conqueror before him. He didn't just win, he didn't just take the land, he merged it. He took the red crown of Lower Egypt and the white crown of Upper Egypt, and he combined them into one crown, for one king of one Egypt. In one moment, one man created a country, a civilization, a story that would last 3,000 years. It started right here, with Narmer, with one battle, with one crown. But now that Egypt was won, someone had to build it. Someone had to make it great. And the kings who came next? They had very big plans. Plans so big, you can still see them from space.
The year is around 2560 BC. Egypt is powerful now, united, wealthy, and the pharaoh sitting on the throne is a man named Khufu. Here's what's interesting about Khufu. We actually know very little about him personally. The only statue we have of him is about the size of your thumb, tiny, and yet the thing he built is the largest stone structure in human history. Khufu wanted a tomb, but not just any tomb. He wanted something that would make the gods themselves stop and look down. He called for his chief architect, a man named Hemiunu, his own cousin, a brilliant, serious man who carried the weight of an impossible dream on his shoulders. Khufu told him, "Build me something eternal." Hemiunu looked at the desert plateau outside the city of Giza, flat, vast, and he began to plan. What Hemiunu designed was almost insane in its ambition. 2.3 million stone blocks. Each one weighs between 2 and 15 tons, stacked with incredible precision to a height of 146 meters. That's almost 50 stories tall, and it would hold that record as the tallest man-made structure on Earth for 3,800 years. But how did they do it? Thousands of workers, not slaves, by the way. Recent discoveries show they were paid workers, skilled craftsmen. They got wages, they got medical care, they ate bread, fish, and onions. They even had their own cemeteries nearby, which archaeologists found. These were not broken, suffering people. They were builders. They were proud. They worked in teams. They had supervisors. They had schedules. They dragged blocks on wooden sledges, poured water on the sand to make it slippery, and used ramps, possibly a whole system of internal ramps, to lift the stones higher and higher. Year after year, block by block, under the desert sun. The Great Pyramid was the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world to survive, and it's still standing today. Right now, in Giza, Egypt. You could go see it, you could touch it, but here's the question no one could answer for centuries. Who's actually buried inside? Because when explorers finally broke in, centuries later, the burial chamber was empty. No body, no treasure, just silence. So where did Khufu go? And what happened to the Egypt he built?
Imagine being erased, not killed,
not exiled, erased. Your face is chiseled off statues. Your name is scratched from temple walls. Your achievements given to someone else. That's what happened to one of the greatest rulers Egypt ever had. And for almost 3,000 years, it worked. No one knew her name. Until a pair of archaeologists started looking more carefully at the broken statues and noticed something strange. The face they thought was a king had the features of a woman. Her name was Hatshepsut, and her story begins with a death. Her husband, the Pharaoh Thutmose II, died young. Their son, little Thutmose III, was just a toddler, too young to rule. So Hatshepsut, as the royal wife and daughter of a pharaoh herself, stepped in as regent, someone to hold the throne until the boy grew up. That was the plan anyway. But Hatshepsut had other ideas. She looked at Egypt, she understood it, she loved it, and after a few years of being regent in the shadows, she made a move that shocked the entire royal court. She declared herself Pharaoh. Not queen, not regent, Pharaoh, full ruler, king of Egypt, and then she got to work. Hatshepsut was one of the most ambitious builders in Egyptian history. She ordered the construction of 2 massive obelisks, so tall, so covered in gold, that they could be seen from miles away, glittering in the sun. She built a stunning temple at Deir el-Bahari, carved right into the face of a cliff. It's still considered one of the most beautiful buildings in the ancient world. But her greatest achievement wasn't a building. It was a journey. She organized a trading expedition to a mysterious land the Egyptians called Punt, possibly modern-day Somalia or Eritrea. 5 ships sailed out, and they came back loaded with incense trees, ebony wood, gold, ivory, and live animals. It was one of the greatest trade missions in ancient history, and she had the whole thing carved onto her temple walls, like a photo album made of stone. You can still see it today. For about 20 years, Egypt thrived under Hatshepsut, and then she disappeared from history. We think she died around 1458 BC, peacefully of old age. But what happened next is where the story gets dark. Thutmose III, the little boy who had grown up in her shadow, was now pharaoh. And decades later, he or his son gave an order: remove her. Every statue, every carving, every inscription with her name. They were smashed, defaced, buried. For thousands of years, it worked. She was gone. But you cannot erase a great person forever.
Say his name, Ramesses. Even the sound of it feels like power. Ramesses II, or Ramesses the Great as history calls him, ruled Egypt for 66 years. He had over 100 children. He built more statues, temples, and monuments than almost any pharaoh before or after him. And one of his greatest tricks? He had his own face carved onto monuments that other pharaohs built. Just chiseled off the old face, put his on. Was it arrogant? Absolutely. But was it effective? Also absolutely. But the story we need to tell is the one that nearly ended him. The year is 1274 BC. Ramesses is in his late 20s, young, ambitious, and itching for a fight. There is another great empire in the north, the Hittites. They're powerful, well-organized, and they want the same territory Egypt wants, a region called Kadesh in modern-day Syria. Both sides know a war is coming. Both sides have been preparing for years. And finally, the moment arrives. Ramesses leads his army north, 4 divisions of soldiers, thousands of men, horses, chariots. He is confident, maybe too confident, because the Hittites have a plan. 2 enemy spies, planted to be caught, told Ramesses that the Hittite army was still far away, not ready, no threat. Ramesses believed them. He rode ahead with just one of his 4 divisions, right into the trap. Suddenly, from behind a hill, over 2,500 Hittite chariots came pouring out. It was an ambush, a massive, overwhelming ambush. Ramesses' division scattered, soldiers ran, chariots crashed. It was chaos, complete chaos. And in the middle of it, surrounded, outnumbered, with his men fleeing around him, was Ramesses himself. This is the moment. Any other leader might have run, surrendered, or died there in the sand. But Ramesses did something extraordinary. He charged, alone, or nearly alone, with just his personal guard, straight into the Hittite chariots. He charged through them, again and again,
creating chaos in their ranks now, screaming, fighting, pushing them back long enough for his other divisions to arrive. The battle ended in a draw. Neither side won, neither side lost. But here's what Ramses did with that. He went home to Egypt and had the story of Kadesh carved onto every major temple in the country. He described himself as a god on the battlefield, a superhuman warrior, saving Egypt single-handedly while his men cowered. Was it true? Not exactly, but it became true in the minds of millions of Egyptians who would read those walls for the next 1,000 years. And here's what's fascinating. After all the fighting, Ramses and the Hittite king eventually signed a peace treaty, the oldest recorded peace treaty in human history. A copy of it is displayed today at the United Nations in New York. Two ancient kings, who almost destroyed each other, decided to stop, to agree, to write it down. Ramses lived to be almost 90 years old, a nearly unheard-of age for the ancient world. When he died, all of Egypt mourned. But the Egypt he left behind was starting to crack. New powers were rising, new threats were coming, and a young girl, not even a native Egyptian, would end up being the last person to ever rule this ancient civilization. And her name, you already know.
Everything ends. Even a civilization that lasted 3,000 years. And the person standing at the very edge of that ending, the last ruler of ancient Egypt, was a woman who has been misunderstood, glamorized, and mythologized more than almost anyone in history. Her name was Cleopatra, and the truth about her is far more interesting than the myths. First, let's clear something up. Cleopatra was not Egyptian by blood, she was Greek. Her family, the Ptolemaic dynasty, came to Egypt when one of Alexander the Great's generals took control of the country around 300 BC. This is where the story shifts, because a new power was rising in the world, Rome. The Roman Republic was the most dominant military force on Earth, and its most powerful general, a man named Julius Caesar, arrived in Egypt in 48 BC. Caesar backed Cleopatra. They defeated her brother, she reclaimed her throne, and they became partners in ruling and in life. She even traveled to Rome with him, had his child, was seen in public as the most powerful woman alive. And then, Caesar was assassinated, stabbed 23 times on the floor of the Roman Senate, March 15, 44 BC, and Cleopatra's world tilted. Rome split into factions. Two men rose to power together, Octavian and Mark Antony. They divided the Roman world between them, and Antony took the east, which meant Egypt. Cleopatra and Antony met, and just like with Caesar, the alliance became personal. They fell in love, had children together. She supported his military campaigns. He protected her rule. For a few years, it almost worked. The final battle came in 31 BC, at sea, off the coast of Greece, the Battle of Actium. Cleopatra and Antony's combined fleet against Octavian's, and it was a disaster. Cleopatra's ships broke formation and fled. Antony followed. Their armies surrendered. There was nowhere left to go. Back in Alexandria, their final city, surrounded and defeated, Antony fell on his own sword. He died in Cleopatra's arms, and Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, made her choice. She was 39 years old. She had ruled Egypt for 21 years. She had been a ruler, a strategist, a mother, a lover, a survivor, and she refused to be paraded through Rome in chains as a trophy of Octavian's victory. She dressed in her finest royal robes. She laid down, and on August 12, 30 BC, she died. The method is still debated. A snake bite, poison, something else.